Getting a full tank of fuel for your car currently requires more patience than waiting for rain in a drought. Since the beginning of the week, traffic congestion has been the order of the day, caused by spillovers of long queues at filling stations. However, Nigerians have been assured that the ongoing scarcity of fuel will end anytime soon. The assurance was given during a meeting with the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, had with the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, IPMAN, in Apapa, Lagos. Joining us on the show this morning as we continue the conversation on the fuel crisis and solutions to the problem is Festus Osifo, President of the Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, Pengasan. Good morning and welcome to the morning show.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Nigerians.
Well, Mr. Osifo, good morning. You were quoted in this newspaper today, saying that the problem with this fuel scarcity challenge is not supply, but distribution. Issues arising from what you described as bridge funding. But yesterday we had, another stakeholder on this program, Mr. Osatuyi, who was telling us that, look, the main problem is that, look, the government depots are not functioning. They are giving all kinds of excuses. So private depots, the members of DIPMAN, are the ones who are making this fuel available. And they just add their own cost, and at the end of the day, it's very difficult. Besides, the refineries are not working at all. We've just been told by the president in a Bloomberg interview that we should look forward to modular refineries and private refineries. But you then say it's not supply that is a problem, considering the fact that we import PMS. So what exactly do you mean by saying the problem is distribution? And how do we address that?
Thank you so much, Dr. Ruben Abati. Yes, I actually granted an interview to a sister station yesterday where I categorically stated that as of today, we could ascertain, we could confirm from the data in NNPC as supplied by our members, not data that is made available to us from government. But our members in these institutions, they have availed us with the relevant data to show that currently we have about 2 billion liters of PMS in stock in Nigeria. So, and that 2 billion liters, when you put it at about 56 million liters averagely per day, that could give up to about 33, 34 days sufficiency. So clearly, where the issues lie is not because there is no stock. The product is available here in Nigeria, but the problem clearly is two things: distribution and pricing. That the issue of distribution, just as you've said, currently, NNPC, some of their depots are working, but why a lot of them are not also working. So if you are lifting from NNPC depot directly, or you are bunkering from the mother vessel that NNPC brings into the country, you are going to get it at 148 naira as ex-depot price. But the person you quoted was also correct. And I also alluded to that yesterday, that if you now give this product to the private depot owners, most of them, they don't sell at the government approved price. They build in some other factors into it. They now increase the ex-depot price to somewhere maybe around up to 160 naira, 162 naira. So because of that, a lot of the retailers, they are not comfortable in buying this product at about 162, and you expect them to sell at the government approved price of 165 naira. So they better shut down their petrol stations rather than embarking in this kind of journey that will not be profitable, or even rather that will lead to a loss. So that is One of the fundamental problems. Then the other one I talked about is the issue of distribution. Because most of these products are supplied to the coastal areas. So when they get to the coastal areas, our pipelines are not working. So you cannot pipe them from Lagos to Sokoto, from Lagos to Kaduna, and so on. So you need these trucks to transfer them from Lagos to other parts of the country. And that was why I talked about the bridging fund. You know, when the calculation was done initially, what we arrived at was, or what the government arrived at through the defunct PPPROA template, was that they are going to be giving 10 naira to the trucks per liter, depending on the distance that you are going, for them to move this product to the final destination. But that 10 naira was agreed as when AGO was around 250 naira per liter. But today, AGO has moved to almost 800 naira per liter. So the petroleum tanker drivers, they are now saying that no, that 10 naira is no longer tenable, that they cannot, if that money will not even be enough for them to fill their tank. So that is really the fundamental problem that we are experiencing today. Not that the stock is not there, the stock is there, but how do you move this stock from where it is to other parts of the country, number one. Then number two, at what price are you giving the retailers to sell? So the person you interviewed yesterday was correct, because when you are selling to them at about 162, it is very difficult for them to sell at 165 and still remain in business. So they rather shut down their petrol stations rather than embarking in this kind of journey. So from what you said as well, that the president alluded to yesterday, that or 2 days ago, the interview that he granted the Bloomberg, that about 4 trillion naira, has been earmarked as subsidy, and that subsidy will not go away anytime soon. Yes, for us, I think they are gradually understanding what we have been talking about. Dr. Ruben, you know that today, if subsidy was removed, PMS today would have been selling for nothing less than 500 to 550 naira. The reason it will be selling up to that is actually because we are not producing domestically. If you look at the Standard & Poor's, S&P, they have a platform that is called PLAT. So Platts Oil Gram Price Report. So this report will come out on a daily basis. So if you go there, you see the amount of, or rather, the price of different petroleum products. I checked last night. When I checked last night, I discovered that the landing cost of PMS to Nigeria as of today would have been about 500. So before you now add other components to it, it could have led to something around 550, 600. Look at the cost of diesel today. The reason the cost of diesel is about 800 today is because we don't produce. The countries that are producing PMS, the countries that are producing AGO, yes, they are still shouting today that the cost has gone up. But you cannot compare the cost in those countries, a country like the US, a country like India, a country like China. You cannot compare the cost to a country like Germany and a country like UK. UK, for example, they consume about 28 billion liters of AGO per annum. But these 28 billion liters that they consume, they actually import 45%. That is why the cost per gallon of AGO in the UK today is about 9.5 USD. Compared to the US, that is about 5.7 USD. So that is why all we have been advocating for is local production. When we produce locally, we are going to remove a lot of bottlenecks. When we produce locally, we may not have these issues of supply that we have today. Right. If we produce locally, then we can be talking about subsidy removal.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Osifo. That's a long-term plan, clearly. What can we do in the interim to just get these fuel queues off the streets?
Oh, yeah. Yes, very apt. In the interim, 2 things that must be done. 1, we must discuss with PTD, and that discussion is in the advanced stage today. We discuss with PTD, let us know how much will be sufficient considering the reality of today, considering the cost or the price of AGO today, considering the fact that what was agreed with them in the past is no longer tenable with the current economic reality. So we discuss with them. We will now put in place the cost that will be, or rather, the price that will be cost reflective. We put it in place and we pay them. Between 20 to 30 naira could be okay. Once that is done, then a lot of the petroleum tanker drivers who had hitherto parked their trucks, we bring them to the road. They will take them to the depots and they will start loading and supply to different parts of the country. So that must be done within the next few days. Another thing that must also be done is for the relevant agencies, NMDPROA, sit down with the private depot owners. What are their constraints? Why is it that today, from NNPC depots, although there are few, they could give out PMS at about 148 naira. But you, private depot owners, you are doing much more than that. You are selling up to 162 naira. That is not the government approved price, because in the PPPROA template, it was specified in that template the various markup. So NNPC will import, they will supply to the private depot owner at a particular price. Then once they get it at that price, there is a certain markup that will be added. Why are you exceeding the markup today? So that will be discussed and resolved. Once they resolve that, then it will now come back, the price will now come back to maximum of 150 naira as the ex-depot price from the private depot owners. Once that is achieved, the retailers will now start lifting because their markup will now be guaranteed. So these two things must be done in the immediate.
Well, the marketers, under the auspices of MOMAN, in the last 24 hours, they've given some suggestions. They say that PMS should be completely deregulated. They've also said that government should break the monopoly that the NNPC enjoys in terms of the importation of PMS. Now, what will be the meaning of this for the average consumer of petrol in Nigeria, considering the fact that the president himself, I keep referring to that Bloomberg interview, said that, look, if you remove subsidy, it may look good on paper as a textbook idea, but that there will be serious social consequences within the community. So if we were to follow, if government were to follow the suggestion of the leaders of MOMAN, what would then be the actual cost of the pump price of petrol? Because some people have been saying it may not even be the 500 naira that you mentioned. It may be worse than that. So how do you balance that with the social consequences that the president talks about?
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Ruben. Clearly, NNPC being the sole importer, there was a history behind it. If you remember very well, the Saraki's committee, with the probing that was done in the Senate, as at then, I think it was the 7th Senate, if I could remember very well. Then within that period, you remember the level of scam with this subsidy regime, with a lot of companies who got licensed to import PMS. At the end of the day, this PMS ended up in the neighboring countries. So it was actually because of that government now reached a decision that NNPC should be the sole importer, because you can easily track, how the PMS comes in. You can easily track how the subsidy is being used. So that has been the history. The position of MOMA for us could have been tenable if there is no stock today. But currently, as I have said earlier, there is stock that could last the country for over 30 days. So that is not the problem. Who sourced the PMS into the country today is not actually the problem, because the stock is available. But to the other path of completely deregulating, for us in Pengassan, we are not against deregulation. For us in Pengassan, we are not against subsidy removal. But we have asked some fundamental questions that have not been answered. And part of the question that we have asked is this. You want to remove subsidy. Dr. Ruben, you could recall where we were in 2016 as the the Naira-dollar exchange rate. We could, if it was 2016, today, AGO will not be selling for about 800 Naira. So you cannot leave everything to the vagaries of the economy. Today, our dollar fluctuates, it oscillates up and down. And again, marketers, they don't even have opportunity to be able to assess dollar at CBN rate or at E&I window. They now have to resort to black market. So if they do that, you could see the problem today in the aviation sector with the Jet A1. It is deregulated and liberalized. You could see the problem today with the AGO. That would have been the problem we would have encountered in PMS. Yes, where we are today was also brought because of the trust deficit that exists within the government circle. Where we are today, we are here today because of the fact that government has not lived up to its billing. The 4 trillion naira, at the end of the year, we are going to realize that the assumptions that went into the 4 trillion naira deposit subsidy, a lot of things has changed. When the 4 trillion naira was budgeted, crude oil has not gotten to $100 per barrel. When the 4 trillion naira was budgeted, the cost of AGO used by the truck was around 250 naira. But today, those assumptions that went into the 4 trillion, they've all changed. So between now and the end of the year, we could ascertain that it may go up to 5 trillion. Let's even assume it's 4 trillion, Dr. Ruben. We know what 4 trillion could actually do for us as a country. Today, when you divide 4 trillion, for example, by 36, it's going to give us 111 billion naira. 111 billion naira per state. When you how many states in Nigeria has a revenue both from the federation account and internally generated revenue of 111 billion naira? When you divide that amount by 109 senatorial districts, it's going to give 36 billion naira. We could know what 36 billion naira could do for each of the senatorial districts. Ditto, when you do same for federal constituency, it's about 11 billion naira. So clearly, for us, some chunk amount of this also end up in the neighboring country. What do I mean? We are subsidizing PMS. Today, we sell PMS in Nigeria officially at about 165. Let's assume some others add markup in different parts of the country, maximum about 190, 200. But in the neighboring country, if in Niger, PMS today is sold for almost 600 naira equivalent. Same thing in Chad, same thing in Ghana, same thing. So now, most of these people, they get this PMS, and we know that our border is so porous. They move most of these products across the borders. So that part of that 4 trillion is going to end up in the neighboring country. So we are actually subsidizing the entire West African suburbs and all the neighboring countries within the Nigerian border. So that is a fundamental problem. But we are not advocating that should not be removed. But what we are saying is that government should be serious. That is why we were quite excited when NNPC had a stake of 20% in the Dangote's refinery. For us, it's a welcome development. We are also happy today because we are monitoring progress in the Port Harcourt refinery. The phase 5, that is the old refinery, will likely come on stream maybe maximum first quarter of next year. We are monitoring. Once we are sufficient in local production, then we could now be discussing on how subsidy could be removed. So for us, as of today, we don't think that it is proper, because if you do that, you are going to subject the citizens to more inflationary pressure. You could see in the last month, our inflation has been going up. If you remove subsidy today, we could be talking inflation in the neighborhood of 20, 21, 22%. And Dr. Ruben, it will interest you to note that the countries that have been advocating that we should remove subsidy, they have brought in some forms of subsidy. Joe Biden just announced a few days ago that the tax on petroleum products in the US, that they are going to remove it. So that shows that they are bringing some form of subsidy into it, because no reasonable government will watch its citizens suffer. No reasonable government will allow its citizens to be subjected to the vagaries of and the volatility of oil and gas industry. So for us, subsidy will go. But there are some fundamentals that must be addressed. Local production, number one. Then number two, the proper management of exchange rate. Because if you remove subsidy today, and we now have exchange rate, $1 to 1,000 naira, it is going to be a problem. You are not addressing minimum wage. You are not addressing some other fundamentals. The people will be impoverished, and the purchasing power is going to deplete fundamentally.
Well, on that note, Mr. Festus Osifo, would like to thank you very much for joining us on the morning show today. Thank you very much indeed.